Start the stream.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
And that's the same beginning we have been using for a number of shows. The Mop Top's still with us. We have to decide. The thing is, I got my bear yesterday. Let's see if you can see him. This is the cutest little feller with his shirt that says, I can get it. Set up right. You don't know what you don't know. And this thing, he can sit down. He's really soft. I mean, a kid would really love this thing, but so would an adult. If you're some girl, you want to sleep with a teddy bear? Here's your teddy bear. Let's put him back here. Should I turn on the light? Let's see if that'll shed some light on him. No. I don't know how I would get more light on him. Let's see. Oh, there we go. There's the teddy bear. Yes, indeed. I don't know how much light we need back there to show the teddy, but he's next to the Codex book. So, anyway.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Coffee is hot. And I think I ate something, and I think I irritated my gums on the bad tooth side. And my headphones make this thing look like it's worse of a mop top than it is. Now that we got that stuff out of the way, and those 5 pounds that I thought I lost magically reappeared this morning. How's that possible? My scale screwed up? You can't gain 5 pounds in one day unless I got a tumor growing in the head. But who knows? Anything's possible, It's like,
this is insane.
Yeah, this is insane. So let's get right into it. I normally, we don't usually deal with the news. But, every now and then, once a week, once every couple weeks, I do take it. There becomes certain stories that need to be brought out. I mean, I talk about stuff that's going on, current events and all that jazz. But a teddy bear, man. Order a teddy bear. Teddy bear. In fact, let me see. Let's go here. I want to make sure they're available. So I'm going to go to a new window. I'm going to put in I'll put in ROCKFLUX.com. And we'll go to the ROCKFLUX.com website. I'm going to let you come along with me. Properties. And this will be technically Tony Caravan Live, because Tony Caravan Live and ROCKFLUX are the same website. And it does this weird, goofy thing. And now you can see what I see. And so we're going to scroll down, get some wearables. See the dude with a "You Don't Know What You Don't Know" shirt on. Discount swag promotions end of year. November 22nd and the 24th is free shipping. And the 29th through December 1st is 15% off everything. And the teddy, let's make sure they're still in stock. This product is no longer available. We removed it from our assortment. Have a look around in our shop. You'll be sure to find something you like. Darn. Oh, man. I can't believe it. Well, anyway, I got one. I wonder what the problem was. They sold out. Imagine having one of these. It's the most ridiculous stuff. Anyway, here's all the ROCKFLUX. When you go to the ROCKFLUX site, this is what you see. A bunch of squares. And if you want something with that on, like it's the holiday season, so like say you want a t-shirt or a hoodie, like a t-shirt might be cool to wear to, like these are really good shirts. $18.99. You can get 15% off those, you know, and they go up to 3XL, you know, so if you're a big person. And that's a woman's t-shirt, no less. But, you know, this is a very nice shirt. And I have one of those. Or you could get free shipping starting on, what was it, the 22nd? Let's see here. No, the 22nd through the 24th. That's this, let me look at the calendar. That would be next Monday through Wednesday. And then the 29th would be Cyber Monday, would be free shipping, would be 15% off everything for Cyber Monday. So, you know, get one of those things. Get some, you know. Or the hoodie, $35. 15% off that. That would be like 3, 4, you know, you get it for about $30. You know, that's not bad for a hoodie. And I bought a hoodie. I didn't buy this hoodie. In fact, I bought the, which hoodie did I get? I got the Then What. Yeah, I got this one. The one you see me putting on the screen. And it's nice. It's nice, comfortable, fits well. And those little pockets, hand warmers, whatever you want to call them, they're great. You know. And of course you can get Then What and various shirts and stuff like that. Okay, enough of that. I don't want to waste your time with that. I know you don't care about that stuff. And we'll eliminate that and get back to now what I was talking about before. Okay, we're going to get into the news. Now, I don't normally deal with the news because to me it's all, insanity. Okay, so, but I just want to show the hypocrisy. And this is an important thing. You know, the title of this show today is The Great Reset is in Place. And, you know, because a lot of people don't really, you know, grasp that. And the title card, that is not the title card. How did I put that in as the title card? I'm sorry. That was supposed to be under something totally different. The title card is this. A graphic that I've shown once before, which I believe originated on a site called Asha Logos that I once did a paying to, but I think the guy like dissed me even though I did this. But it's like, all right. So the Great Reset is already in progress. Now, Xmas feature was this thing left over. Okay, we seem to be all right. Okay, we're back on target. Sorry about that. False start.
Did you accidentally inject yourself with some kind of psychotropic agent?
Oh, no.
Yeah, probably. I do not know. Let's just get into this. Hypocrisy. All right. So I started talking about this yesterday, that the Great Reset's already in progress. In other words, there's people actually like still talking like it's still some World Economic Forum thing-a-majing. Now, but let's look at the reality of like absurdity and hypocrisy of what's going on. And this is right out of Google News. So, you know, you can't, this isn't me making anything up. And actually it's going to get quite surprising. Drug overdose deaths fueled by fentanyl hit record high in the U.S. That's Wall Street Journal, but CBS Evening News. Overdose deaths hit record high during pandemic. Now, what they're trying to do is try to play some kind of pandemic thing. The pandemic's over. I mean, right? You know, I mean, you can't have a pandemic for like 3 years, right, with a bioweapon. You know, why don't they say World War III is, you know, in full force and the Great Reset, you know, is upon us. But you see how, like, CBS, the difference between media, CBS tries to, like, they don't even say it's fentanyl. They're saying overdose. It's just like, just to fucking rattle people's brains. Okay, now this is somehow recommended for me, though. I'm lucky if I hit Google News, you know, a dozen times a year. Northrop Grumman reveals plans for new astronaut moon buggy. Okay. 4 other companies team up for NASA lunar terrain vehicle. This is that diversionary thing. Go to the moon, go to the Mars. It's not going to save us from the, the solar outburst. Okay, press secretary stuns reporters by claiming that high gas prices are good. I think I saw a clip of her saying that. So she doesn't understand that the average worker, right, who uses the most gas in their car, right, is affected by this. Not the wealthy. I mean, the wealthy don't care. Gas price is insignificant. Their chauffeur or some chauffeuring service picks them up, takes them to their private jet that uses, you know, more fuel than a person uses in their car in a year, or whatever it is. High gas prices are good. Now she also doesn't understand, like I tried to explain yesterday, and this definitely bears repeating. When you drive an electric car, like a Tesla or one of these things, that electricity that charges your battery comes 25% from coal and 25% most likely from gas, natural gas that was fracked. So when you're down the road and say, hey, look at me, I'm green. I did this yesterday, right? I'm Mr. Green Jeans or Ms. Green Jeans. Well, guess what, Green Jeans? You're driving a car that runs on fracked gas and 25% coal. All right? You hypocrite. You fool. Whereas the person driving a regular, efficient automobile that just drives on regular, gasoline or premium gasoline that has all its catalytic converters and all that kind of stuff in, is basically much more, is putting less carbon-based fuels into the environment. Think about that. So in other words, it's the electric cars that basically are running on fracking and coal, and the average person driving a regular vehicle, because the vehicles today have high emissions standards, is basically emitting less. Now, of course, CO2, 0.004 CO2 and methane are trace gases, and people don't understand that. But anyway, in her logic, she's thinking, oh, yeah, gas prices are high. People are going to go electric. The more people go electric, the more dependency on coal. There's some predictions saying that electricity from coal is probably going to shoot up from 25% to 35% in the next year or two. Right? And natural gas is going to go up as the earth cools, which we're in a cooling period. See what I'm seeing? Hypocrisy and absurdity. All right? And diversion, moon buggy. And then overdose deaths from fentanyl. Yeah, people are, so what? All right? So what? That's a problem with the school system, the education system. And you see that? Why does a person, and the government, they're letting this fentanyl come through the borders, come through what? The United States Postal Service packages from China or something? Right? The big pharma is allowing it, right? Fentanyl's not exactly like crank. It's not something you make in a bathtub. All right? Jordan Peterson buys more Bitcoin. Inflation be damned. I think he's a fool. I mean, we'll get into the Bitcoin thing in a second. Now, here's the one, the ultimate one. And what's interesting about this is not only the headline, the person who's quoted, but the news organization covering it. Okay? So get ready for this. I mean, we need a drum roll. And I guess I could move this up so I can enlarge this so you can really see this last one. Hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated in U.S., Fauci says. Reported by NBC News 10 hours ago. All right, let me repeat that one more time. Hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated in U.S., Fauci says. According to NBC News, reported, and this is from direct screen capture of Google News reporting NBC News. Now, what kind of signal is that sending? Right? Hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated in U.S., Fauci says, NBC News reports. Now, is it a saline solution? I told you that I know a number of people who have had it, the jab, and got the thing. And now hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated. You know, they've made that sure that they put that word there. Fully vaccinated in U.S., Fauci says. NBC News. There were several studies showing that the hospitalizations and the people contracting the disease, with and without, were converging very closely in the 30 percentile range, meaning that it's getting harder and harder to differentiate between those getting this thing that's been around for 2.5 years, according to the intelligence agencies, which they've said on camera, reported by Sky News, right? I watched on Google, a Alphabet company subsidiary somehow through Google. You know, it's out there for you to see, a news reporting agency. All right, they admitted they knew this before even Event 201 in the fall. So they knew this in the summer of 2019. They had 6 months to eradicate this, or 6 months to deal with this thing prior to 2020. All right. Now they've gone on record saying that. And they've also gone on record saying that it most likely, it came from this Wuhan lab, which is a bioweapons lab, which was funded by that, at the time, by that guy listed in this article. Hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated in the U.S., Fauci says, NBC News. This was reported 10 hours ago. All right? Think about that. What is going on? What is going on? And what are these people out protesting saying, calling some, people do you understand the hypocrisy, the insanity, the confusion, the absurdity, the nonsense, the utter madness? I mean,
This is insane. This is insane.
Okay? It's crazy. And, for someone other than me, it's...
This is a nightmare. It must be a nightmare.
And Thanksgiving's here and the holiday season, right? And they put this out the week before Thanksgiving. And they're telling people to get, oh no, you need a booster shot too. But some people aren't eligible for a booster shot. In fact, the one person who got it, in other words, had the 2 shots, told me that, and I don't want to say even the gender, was not available. That person was not eligible for even a booster shot, which makes no sense because they had caught the disease 6 months after they were inoculated. Hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated in U.S., Fauci says, NBC News. Press secretary stuns reporters by claiming that high gas prices are good. I saw that clip, too. This is crazy. I'm sorry you can't get one of those bears. They're sold out. That's disappointing. That's very disappointing. I'm going to have to, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'll have to remember to do it. I'll have to remember to take the bears off my site. They're so cool. I guess they're going to be collector's items now. I'll sell you mine for Bitcoin. All right. Well, anyway, that's that. I don't know what else to say. That is that news. Sometimes you have to report the news.
The Weather Watch forecast.
All right, here's a look at the weather. It's currently 5:29 a.m. on this Thursday, November 18th in the calendar year 2021. Could be 1521 for all we know. Anyway, as you can see, there is, it's an interesting cloud formation that, as opposed to the forecast that they've been giving us in the mid-Atlantic states. Here, there's a 90%. Basically, they're saying it's going to rain today. It's going to be like 59 degrees and rain. But the overnight's going to be 28. And then we're pretty much a week of wintry weather, next Monday, snow and all that kind of garbage. So if it rains all day today, we're talking about icing overnight. I wouldn't want to be driving, right? But when you look at these clouds and this pattern of the clouds, these southern clouds, right, which, seem to be coming from Mexico, maybe slightly picking up some moisture, not even really. I was going to say over the Gulf, but not really. This overland, warm, coming from the warmer south, up into the Ohio Valley, western Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and then into New England. Florida, now I can see Florida looks like it's going to get doused with rain. I mean, look at those big clouds exploding there, just to the left of Havana. But I mean, that stuff's going to work its way into Florida. But up top, you can see this northern, maybe it's a potential polar vortex. You see how that's coming down? And then that's coming down potentially over the Great Lakes, which you think would end up yielding a lake effect snow. But whatever kind of rain there's going to be, according to these clouds, see, this is what I say, you have to watch very closely. Now in the northwest, those are heavier clouds, and that's coming right off the water. So it makes sense that they're going to have, rain, and they, like I said before, they had some flood problems there. Who knows? That may continue. But if you look at these clouds, that you can see right through them. Look at Indiana, Ohio, western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, upstate New York. You can see through them from this satellite. CONUS, by the way, that's the name of the satellite. This was just taken within the last couple hours. And it's in motion and what's going on. So you see the direction, the trend, and what's happening. So I don't understand how those kinds of thin cloud covers are going to yield a lot of rain, you know. It's very interesting to watch this kind of stuff. See, I was saying when you talk about, you listen to the news, but then you have to go to the source, and this is taxpayer funded, so that's why
The Weather Watch forecast.
I bring that stuff up, and that's why I bring you these things. It takes me about sometimes an hour to prepare this stuff. All I had for breakfast today was a couple of prunes, probiotic prunes. They have these prunes, they say they're 10 times more active culture, for your microbiome than yogurt. 10 times more if you take like a couple of these things. And I take them for regularity. And I had a few grapes, I had a few blueberries, and I'm trying to think if there was anything else thrown in. And an apple. So I had like a fresh fruit, breakfast. I'm drinking some coffee. I have water. And I took half of an aspirin for the heart. Heart attack. Like my shirt. This is my Hawaii shirt. Christmas in Hawaii. Let's see if you can see. There's a woody. Well, there's Santa. Boat. There's also like a classic, like I'll show you the whole thing sometime. So, since they mentioned Bitcoin in the news, let's look at this. Now, this is a 5-day summary I decided to show you because I wanted you to, grasp this. It showed that Peterson is buying Bitcoin. He must have a lot of money. Well, I guess he did have that like ridiculous breakaway bestseller book. So I guess he's got millions of dollars. But the thing is, if you look at this, and this goes back 5 days, this shows you the 64,000 on Monday, November 15th, right? But I don't know why that particularly popped up there, because you can see if you look very closely above the 64,060.20 cents, you can see that it broke the 66 line, because remember we said we were up to 66,000. So it's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know if I accidentally moused onto something, but you could see my, well, no, you can't see it. But yeah, it must have been, I must have accidentally moused over something. So in the past 5 days, Bitcoin has gone down 8.2%. And Jordan Peterson is saying, inflation be damned, or something like that. What did he say? What's his exact words? Jordan Peterson buys more Bitcoin. Inflation be damned. Well, I'll tell you what. Inflation is about 8%. I think the government was trying to say 6 or something weird like that. But it is mostly closer to 8 or higher, because they don't include fuel prices like the press secretary is trying to say is a good thing. And like the price of food, steak and stuff like that people eat. And, who knows what turkey's going to cost this year. I mean, basically, they used to give out free turkeys. So Bitcoin's down to 59, and it was up to 66 and change. So we're down, even though this is on the 5-day, we know, because if you follow this show, that within the past week, basically Bitcoin lost about over $7,000 per coin. I mean, that just seems to be far too much of a fluctuation, for an investor. Now, I'm not saying the thing's not going to shoot up, right? Like I said, but I in other words, if you can't even remotely see in the markets, and this show isn't about this, but the Great Reset's is in full swing, and it's was placed put in place by the World Economic Forum. So this is part of this talk. See, when you're looking at the markets like the stock market, for example, even interest rates and things along those lines, nobody has the so-called crystal ball to see the future and where the markets are going to go. But there are many feelers and many things that you can, look to that are, they kind of, help you see where the trends are and where the market may go. In other words, people, the big investors, their uncertainty is something they don't like. Things like inflation, there's all sorts of, there's factors that those who are into studying the market, playing the market for a living, they're indicators. And those indicators, it's like earnings season, companies quarter over quarter earnings, year over year, right? Did this, that kind of thing, right? Ratios of, and all this kind of stuff, right? But in Bitcoin, you have none of that, all right? So, to watch Bitcoin in a week lose $7,000 per Bitcoin, and then for some reason to have some guy say inflation be damned and I'm going to buy more Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, go for it, buddy. But, you'd be better off buying like Pfizer or something like that, because at least there's, they've got approval for this to give the booster of this thing that somehow more hospitalizations by people who got the thing and, got this, hospitalizations are up. Like, 2.5 years after. Makes no frickin' sense. This frickin' aging potion and stuff I'm taking is ridiculous. I'm going to end up being looking like a junior high student soon. So I wonder if I should stop the anti-aging process. You've seen my earlier videos. I look like an old man. This stuff really works. It's scary. So we got that happening now too. In other words, there's no such thing as aging. You can reverse the aging process. It's funny nobody even watches this show. All the stuff on there. Such a cute bear, right? I can't believe they discontinued them. Man, that's a drag. I guess must have squeezed right in there just at the right time. Yeah, I don't know what happened. All right, well, let's look at La Palma. Let's get through everything bit by bit. So this is the latest from Spain. Forget about the American media. All right. If you want something on Spanish territory, in other words, this island is owned, as part of Spain, technically, as far as it's like, U.S. Virgin Islands. Okay. This is La Palma is, Spanish La Palma. So yesterday I accidentally said like 8 weeks or nine months or some stupid thing. There was a slip of the tongue, and it was pretty obvious when I was watching the playback yesterday. But anyway, so this eruption is now active for nearly, like I said, years or months. It was whatever. Anyway, it's 9 weeks, so we're coming up on 10 weeks. It's a long time. I mean, it started September 19th, and we're approaching tomorrow is the 19th of November. Okay. So that's, October, November, from September to October to November, whatever. Anyway, unfavorable conditions for flights on Thursday, which is today, due to ash and winds. So this thing isn't like, that's not good. That's not good this far into it. And Wednesday saw a number of tremors spike, double the previous day's count by 6 p.m. All right, when they last recorded the tremors, as far as whoever this reporter was. So, and remember this is over, like 5 hours ahead of us over there to begin with. So that would have been like 11 o'clock at night. So anyway, all that ash going up into the sky, like I keep trying to tell you, and there are other volcanoes which we'll switch to in the coming weeks, that, the cooling effect on the planet is going to be tremendous. It's just going to be outrageous. So, why did they even have that climate summit up in Scotland? And like I say, why are even people, as I say, electric cars are cool and all that stuff, but I mean, don't play the game that you're greener than the person next to you who's driving, an energy efficient, 2019 vehicle or 2020 car. All right. Because all they're using is basically regular fuel. And they didn't charge their batteries from electric that, came from coal and natural gas fracked. So that's this hypocrisy. And this idea that we're shooting all this ash up in the sky, which is definitely going to, and it's not just La Palma, okay? And it's going to have that effect. At the same time, solar activities, solar cycles, like I always say, and a weakened magnetic field that we have, and the slowing down of the conveyor, which I haven't mentioned in a while, the Atlantic conveyor, which keeps the northern latitudes, warmer than they normally should be technically for their geographic location on the planet. It's that conveyor that brings the warm air up, right, and the cold air down. That's why they call it the conveyor. There's another name. They have another name for it. But that's what it always been when I grew up. So it's still the conveyor. It's like Pluto's a planet to me. I don't care what some Johnny-come-lately guy says. All right? It's got a moon. It's a planet, right? It's got an atmosphere. Looks like there's geothermal activity there. It's like, in other words, all the criteria, bullet list criteria of a planet, Pluto meets practically all of them. So what that there's some, something out in the Oort cloud the same size, right? Big deal. It's in the Oort cloud, right? Sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, or Lord of the Rings. I watched The Hobbit yesterday, that part 2 of The Hobbit, the Oort, like the Oort cloud, like the orcs or whatever. I mean, that's what I think of when I hear that. I can never get the last remaining amount. See, there's only a little bit in the carafe to go into my cup without overflowing, which it did overflow a little bit onto my coaster. All right, so let's see if we're covering everything that you need. We got the Bitcoin. We got to, this France picture, this grow room thing. The Xmas feature. Well, I'm going to keep that up because I'm dealing with my tooth, because the tooth metal thing. And then, poor pitiful me. Okay, let's get to the music feature. All right, so today's featured song actually comes from turned around. Yesterday's CD, I featured this CD. You could see it's still shrink wrapped. And like I said, I have a ton of these. I'd actually give them away for $1. But you see it says the worst Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa song ever written or sung is on this CD. All right. And so what I'm doing is I'm featuring that song today. And of course, thanks to Amazon, this is no longer in print because this was Amazon had this music on demand program, and this is my one of my greatest hits CDs, the Essential Beat Poetry. I mean, look at this thing; it's the real deal. Anyway, you can't buy this anymore. I luckily bought 2 of them. It's like the bear. But anyway, you can get. This has everything you know is wrong. That's that EYKIW I talked about yesterday is on this one. So you get at least 2 good songs are on here, right? I don't know what the thing's selling for, but I'll have to double check the price. But this is the worst Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa song ever written or sung. And I checked. There was one review, and it was like a 5-star review, which is good. At least on Amazon. But I mean, this song has been, this has become a seasonal classic within certain circles. And it's received airplay. But this is a great tune. So, I mean, you can listen free on YouTube. What you want to do is actually go to I have this this image is from like the music video, if you look on YouTube. But I also go through something called CD Baby. And that one probably has like a very low number of hits. But if you play it on YouTube through CD Baby, I actually will get, a couple cent royalty. Hey, every penny helps. If you play it through mine, right, through the one I put up, the music video where I have kind of the words coming up like in a Star Wars way, I don't get anything. How does YouTube do that too? How do they get away with that? In other words, they'll have my music played, even though it's registered with BMI, which is Broadcast Music Inc. or whatever, right? Manages royalties for artists and stuff like that, publishers. So how does YouTube do that? It's really weird. Really weird. The Beatles. It won't be long, yeah, 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 yeah. It won't be long, yeah. There's got to be people who would have known me in the past who would look at this and go like, how old is that video? I mean, I think. I don't know. It's hard to say. But anyway, music feature of the day, Tony Caravan. It's like...
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
It's a cool song. And it's a live version. It was performed live. So it's worth listening to. It's on that CD, which also has everything you know is wrong. So you want to get at least 2 tracks. Like some of those other tracks I'm not too happy with. And they're outdated. Unlike my Essential, which is no longer available. But I've got about 50 songs somehow floating around. And, but yeah, that's me in Hollywood. Okay. So look at the face. It's me in Hollywood. See the Hollywood sign way in the back? It's real hard. It might be hard to see. Right? Anyway, featured song. Now, I guess we might as well I think we've covered all the grounds that need to be covered. So I'm thinking of, though, let me just put this in here because for some reason this doesn't belong here anyway. I'm thinking of watching this movie. That's my girlfriend, Amy Smart. I mean, she's not my real life girlfriend. She's my wannabe fantasy girlfriend. So I guess she's got a Christmas movie out that's on I think it's on Amazon Prime right now. That face. But it's probably like a Lifetime movie, which I don't know. The sign of a good actress is that if they could pull off like a Lifetime movie and then do something like totally like off the wall. Like there's this other actress who I think's a really good actress. I'm going to have to do a search because my, brain is not functioning properly. What movie was that? Princess Switch. Let's see if that was the one. Yeah. Vanessa Hudgens. Okay. Or Hudgens. I don't know how you pronounce her name. Well, she did this movie like the Princess Switch movie, which was totally like a Lifetime, one of these like romance, type of things. And then they even did a follow-up to it, which part 2, which was just because the first one was popular and they knew people would watch it. The second one wasn't as good as the first. But then she's gone on to do and she's done some other movies that were just like kind of like, run-of-the-mill drama type of stuff. But then she did some heavy theater and she did some other thing where she was like, I don't know if she was like somehow like involved, like a drug addict or some kind of real down and out, like you wouldn't even hardly recognize her as the character. The actor versus the character she played. And, that's the gauge I have for a good actor. And a lot of, and actresses, we call them actresses out here. But in the industry, when I used to be in the industry, most of the serious actors, women actors, prefer to be called an actor, not an actress, right? It's like being a waitress or being a stewardess, right? They consider it an insult. Some don't. Some will actually call themselves an actress. But like in my book, Vanessa Hudgens is an actor, a great actor. Because she's able to do that. And, some people would say, oh, well, you did this Lifetime type thing. It's the same with this Amy Smart. Look at her. She looks like all-American girl with some guy, goofy guy here. It's like the Barbie and Ken type of thing, right? But the thing is, if you've watched Amy Smart in other roles, she's a real actor. You know what I mean? And so, this, nobody probably ever said this before. Of course, nobody says anything I say on this show. But I mean, this is really weird. But the true gauge of someone being a great actor, particularly a female, is that if you could pull off a Lifetime type of movie, and you know what I'm talking about, Lifetime movies, right? If you don't, because I mean, that era is over now because they've kind of gone politically weird and bizarre now too. I understand, I was told that by my mom, I think, because that used to be her go-to place. Women, a lot of women who just sit around watch, Lifetime movies all day long. Especially grandmas and stuff like that. But even other women I know younger women who used to that would call it mindless entertainment or something. It's like reading those Harlequin romances and stuff, if you know what I mean. It's like, women just eat those books up. But anyway, yeah. So I'm telling you that the true gauge of a female actor, is that if they could pull off a Lifetime movie and then do another drama, thriller, or something else, and someone like Amy Smart can. And yes, I know it's November 18th. All right, a week before Thanksgiving. I'm wearing like a Hawaiian Christmas shirt, and I've got 12 dates of Christmas on there. But I'm probably going to maybe try to watch that movie today or sometime, And so what, And then I go from that to this, which to me, the first time I presented this slide, I say I originally appeared in something. A guy, Asha Logos, is the YouTube channel. I don't even know if he's still putting stuff out. He was one of these guys I liked what he was saying, and he had an interesting view, and he's very well articulate, well-researched material, and he was calling things as it is, and this is like even a year or so ago. But, and then he got into even like people trying to get people together to, affect change and stuff like that. But in one of his videos, there was this image popped up. And I don't know where it came from, and I didn't see any, he didn't credit it or anything. So I don't know where it came from. I don't know if he took it. I don't know. Like I say, I'm giving credit to the site, okay? And, I encourage you to go. If he's still out there, I know he had a website, and I know he had or has a YouTube channel. So I'm giving you that credit, okay? Because this isn't something, I didn't come up with this. All right? But when I saw this, and in the context of his presentation, and we're talking ancient, going back into history. All right. Look at the carving. This is carved into stone. This almost gets into we were talking about the Egyptian stuff, and how the dynastic Egyptians basically laid claim to previous not even generations, to previous civilizations' artwork, and work. But I mean, look at imagine the sculptor that did this, number one, okay? But then let's imagine, so the workmanship is just, okay, beyond, is at the highest possible level. We're talking Michelangelo type of stuff here, all right? But that's not it. Look at the face on the lion. And if you see that the lion has been stabbed, is killed. He's and the sadness and the defeat, which is probably the defeat of the king, I guess, I don't know, the lion always seems to be the, something along those lines. So I'm not into kingship or any of that. But to me, this was just so damn moving. The paw even extends out over the concept of being able to do this. And so when I say the Great Reset is already here, to me, and I don't care what this represents, all right? In the context of this program and the title of this show, all right, that the Great Reset is already here. That expression, this image, is what they've done to our civilization. you know. It's like, I mean, in those old movies, you know, long live the king, you know, or the king is dead, long live the king type of thing, right? And that's I put that up in the thing, you know, the king is dead, long live the king. And like I say, that's a part of our fantasy, you know, romanticized history. And I don't necessarily believe in the sense of leaders and all of that kind of stuff. You know, of course, I just did watch The Hobbit, which is one of those types of, you know, that J.R.R. Tolkien type of stuff. But I mean, yeah, the king is dead, long live the king. But, you know, replace the king with Western civilization or the U.S. You know, the U.S., Western civilization is fallen. Long live Western civilization. The U.S. is the former United States. Long live the United States of America. And this is what these people have done. All right. Western civilization, you know, just like each of us in individual human beings, you know, save Mother Teresa or something. Right? You know, we're all flawed and we've all had our, you know, gone through our periods of childhood foolhardiness, juvenile stupidity, you know, even college, you know, nonsense. And even as adults, like I've said, even in self-admitted, you know, self-centeredness and pursuits of, you know, pursuits of fame and fortune or something. And maybe, you know, not seeing, stepping over, or, you know, not looking and seeing the people, you know, the true friends around you, or the, or the, and in relationships, you know, the person that really loved you for, you know, some lustful or some idealistic other idea, and passing through that. And then life goes on, and then you look back at your life and you realize, you know, but then that line, when I was a child, I thought as a child or spake as a child, you know, but now I'm a man. So, you know, I am I'm totally bastardizing the quote, but I speak as a man and live like a man. But, you know, when you look at this, you know, that image, like I say, whatever its original, forget about, you know, the concept and the Latin and all that kind of stuff. The idea here is that image itself. And I could have cropped out everything and just showed you, you know, there's probably some people obsessed with the writing and translation and all that kind of stuff. But I don't care, you know, and I could have cropped that out if I wanted to, but I didn't, because the point is I'm trying to get this. I'm saying that sums up. That's what the Great Reset has done to civilization. And Western civilization, like I say, wasn't the crowning achievement probably of life on this planet. There might well have been civilizations tens of thousands of years ago, destroyed by cataclysms, that have risen much higher than we have. And obviously, we can see historically the creation of the, you know, the ruins that remain, that there were definitely greater civilizations, and civilizations that didn't rely on tech, right? And that weren't as self-centered. And, you know, each of us has the ability, and like I said, I know in the last 25 years or so, to basically come to my senses and see things the way they really are. And that's what we all need to do. and stop looking for some hero. You know, the king is dead, long live the king, right? I mean, the idea is, you know, life is, you know, we're living in a surrealistic nightmare right now, which was the title of one of my books, by the way. And there's no way out. That's not defeatist. All right? Look at the face on that lion. I mean, you have to understand that these people, if you can call them that, have seized power, global power, right? The Davos set, the billionaire class, the self-appointed rulers of the planet. I mean, that's what they consider themselves, right? They're hypocrites. They fly 400 jets using jet fuel, carbon-based jet fuels to a climate summit and talk about somebody driving, you know, a little Chevy that's got, you know, all kinds of emissions filters and stuff on it as if they're the problem, right? They say, oh, climate change is going to raise the ocean levels and the shores are going to be gone. And then Obama goes and other billionaires go and buy oceanfront property right on the edge, water's edge for $15 billion or $20 billion. And no one says, no one calls out, like points like the child in the emperor's new clothes and says, well, if it's going to do that, why did you just spend $15 billion and build there if the oceans are going to rise? Why are you flying that jet that uses more fuel than that single mom driving to work, you know, every day than she uses in a year or two, or who knows? Why are you driving this expensive Tesla car that runs on electricity, and that electricity comes through the grid that's powered by natural gas and coal, and you're pretending that you're greener than that single mom driving to work, or maybe two jobs in this car that has better emissions, right? And less of a carbon footprint than a Tesla. You know, why are you buying the latest Apple phone that pretends that it has like approaching, you know, net or whatever they call it, you know, zero, you know, whatever, when it is forged, you know, in furnaces to mold the chassis and melt the glass and make this stronger glass is through a process of heating at such and such a temperature, right? And parts still come from China, communist China that has gulags, and that released this thing on the world and knew it. And our intelligence community has admitted it on Sky News, that they knew it last summer. The king is dead, long live the king. I mean, this is insanity. And that's the world we're living in now. That's, you know, and at the same time, we're on the precipice of our, you know, of a near extinction event. The sun is just, you know, out of control. A weakening magnetic field, conveyor, slowing down, volcanoes going off right and left, spewing ash into the sky, cosmic rays, solar rays heating up more magma inside the earth, that kind of stuff. And at the same time, they're trying to blame 0.004 CO2 as if it's some kind of thing. It's a trace gas on the earth. It's a trace gas. It doesn't even come up when you look, even on Google, when you look it up on Google, if you look up what is the atmosphere comprised of, and it shows you mostly nitrogen, then oxygen, then argon, and then trace gases such as carbon and methane. Trace gases, 0.004. And yet those trace gases still manage to make the trees green and feed our crops, and which give us food, and the trees and flowers in turn give us oxygen. And let's not forget beauty. That things like solar farms and windmills in our landscapes, and that the beauty of nature is being destroyed by this ridiculous pursuit of wind and solar power, which is fine for the individual. And like I say, I have it on my own greenhouse, and I sell solar Christmas lights and things like that. Yeah, it's great for the individual, but it accounts for such a small percentage of our electricity. And no matter how much you increase it, quadruple it, treble it, all right, double it, keep going down, because it's like less likely that we're going to quadruple it. But even if it were, it would still not come close to natural gas. And it would take literally decades and decades to replace coal completely, the 25% of coal. Right? I mean, people just don't understand this kind of thing, and it's really sad, because, that people and children, I'm going to put U.S. here. Okay. In 2019, this is typical Google. Okay, so this is a great company. All right. In 2019, this is Google. 2019, renewables surpassed coal in the amount of energy provided in the U.S. and continued this trend in 2020. Wind and solar are the fastest growing renewable sources, but contribute just 4.6% of the total energy used in the U.S. Okay, it didn't surpass coal. Okay? Because what they don't understand, when they talk about this stuff, is that in most places, that you could generalize. All right. Renewables include wind, hydroelectric, geothermal, biomass, and solar. So here's how I want to explain how this is a lie. Okay, here. So I looked up how much energy, comes out of solar and wind. Well, we've always had hydroelectric is 22.4%. Biomass is 39.1% of that 12% that they're claiming. Do you understand? The lies, the deceptions. So wind and solar are lucky if it's like 35% of the renewable portion of energy, which is just a fraction of 12, which where they're saying is 12%. But depending upon the state, and in the northern latitudes, coal's like 25%. And globally as well. So figures lie and liars figure. I mean, you could do that research. When you do the research, though, don't look at the surface. Make sure you click on the graphs and see that what they're including. Things like biomass and geothermal, and hydroelectric, which are dams. We've had these dams forever. you know. And we're not, China tried building a bunch of dams and they've got problems with them. You don't build a dam, quickly. Right? And they want to put, there's all these ideas to ruin all our shores. Like they want to put like these things that get energy from the waves. They already have like, you can look out at the ocean, and instead of watching a sunrise on the East Coast, you look out, and instead of seeing a beautiful sunrise and clouds in certain areas, you see windmills out at sea. And those windmills eventually break down, and nobody wants to fix them. Right? So it's all one big charade, one big, like, it's double speak, double talk. And I look this stuff up, and it's like, even me, what are you trying to say? Coal's only 12% or 11%. And then you use the word renewables. Renewables. Windmills aren't renewable. There are windmill graveyards all over the U.S. How's that renewable? They're not being repaired. All right? Solar is not necessarily renewable. They have a lifespan. And it expends energy to make those things, those panels. The metal that encases them is forged. The glass is melted, smelted. Right? Like I say, build the amount of energy and heavy equipment required to build a dam or something like that, or even to build those columns that the windmills stand on, requires carbon-based fuels forged in furnaces, heated by coal, natural gas. You see what I mean? And so they play around with these numbers and figures, and it's all a big game. Figures lie and liars figure. And they come up with this thing and say, oh, renewables are the fastest growing. Solar and wind are the fastest growing. No, they're not. It's the same as a Tesla or any other electric vehicle. The amount of energy that is expended to run the factory, produce these, sometimes some of the factories are actually run on solar panels. I must admit that. But I mean, to melt the metal, the chassis, the hard part that keeps the car, from killing the driver and the passengers. All right? That's like forged steel. All right? Like I say, those poles that these windmills stand on, and the poles that the solar farms and panels are encased in and are mounted on, the glass that's melted, right? And they throw out all those other factors. The same with the smartphones and the computers and stuff, and they say, see, we're going to zero emissions. We are all using renewable and recyclable, right? Even recycling plants use electricity that's gotten partially from petroleum, oil, gas, and coal. And the question you have to ask is, why do they lie? Why are they lying? Why are they lying? And why are social media not, lying, letting the lie exist? Press secretary claims high gas prices are good. Hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated in the U.S., Fauci says. NBC frickin' News. Drug overdose deaths, right? Hit record high. People are coming over the border and they're not being tested. and then they're being bused to different parts of the country. And then they say hospitalizations are up or something. Well, yeah, you got, like sending people in, but you won't let somebody have a job who's like tested negative. I tested negative. I was tested. I tested negative. And that person I talked about who did get the thing, the job, and then caught it. Before she knew she caught it, that weekend she came by, stopped by. I gave her a friendly hug when she was on her way. Right? So actually had contact. We weren't, in the house. We weren't wearing masks and stuff. And I never got it. I went in the hospital and they did a CT scan and the bottom of my lungs were all clear and perfect and stuff like that. I mean, I've had health problems, but I haven't had that. So the point of the matter is, there comes a time where you have to deal with reality, and the people who have taken over, the Great Reset has already happened. The king is dead. Long live the king. And we have to, live our lives and accept this, that this is the, the new dynamic. This is the way it is. There has been a paradigm shift, right? And I guess if I didn't answer before why I have all this holiday stuff on, and my holiday bear back there, and I'm going to put some more Christmassy stuff up. I think I got to get another one of those Dollar Tree Christmas light sets and just kind of have them floating around my books and stuff to light up the bear and everything. But why are they lying? What is their gain? Yeah, that's the question. They already have power, all right? They already are billionaires, okay? They're already the self-appointed ruling class, okay? So why are they tormenting the 8 billion people on the planet? Why are they destroying, the remnants of Western civilization and the pockets of freedom in the former United States? Why? But I have a bigger question than that. Why are you still holding out hope that some messianic figure is going to come and somehow, like the phoenix, rise from the ashes of this fallen nation and fallen Western civilization and somehow change it all? The king is dead. Long live the king. Do you get it? Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? Do you see this moment we're at this time, this moment in time? And I don't think people really grasp that. As people arguing about the most idiotic things in the world, like gun control and stuff like that. Look, they're not going to change that stuff. Yeah, the places with the strictest gun controls in the United States, for example, have the highest murder rates, right? Highest crime rates, put it that way. Right? Because the criminals get the guns. Well, why do you think that's going to change? Have you ever seen the mayor of Chicago make a speech? She's a frickin' psychopath. All right? She's living in a dream world. Remember during the height of the plague a year ago, she was going to a hairdresser and said something like, well, I'm a public figure. I have to look good. Baby, there's nothing you can do to yourself to make you look good. You look like well, you're a freak. And you're an evil freak. And, when you have hate within your heart, it kind of comes out and shows, right? It shows. Yeah. And then you get these happy-go-lucky types, like the Kamala Harris laughing or the, Gavin Newsom out in California, right? Dumping plastics into the ocean, allowing people to shoplift, putting small businesses out of business, depriving people of like neighborhood areas where they can get pharmacies and toiletries and the necessities of life, right? While he lives and goes and spends $1,000 a plate at some restaurant. New York mayor's joke. And meanwhile, people are dying, paying high rents. That stupid Psaki press secretary saying high gas prices are good. Good for what? Good for the working person? The wage slave? Good for what? She honestly's so young. I don't know how old she is, but she doesn't look that old. So she's like a 90s person, right? She's probably born in the 90s. Maybe she's 30 or something like that, possibly. I don't know if is she that old? There's a lot of the Biden people, apart from the old people they brought in from the Obama administration and the Clinton administration or whatever. They got a bunch of kids, right? So they have no concept of what America was like, life, right? They don't know what we talk about when we say the king is dead, long live the king, and the face on that lion. That's our faces. That's all of our faces. Those who grew up in this country in the beautiful times, right? Right. That's the face of the people who fought for the civil rights movement and we won, who fought for the feminist movement and won, who fought to, better the quality of life of all people on this planet but all people in this country and won. The people who fought for freedom and won. But that's the face now of them. They've killed it. They've killed this country. They've destroyed Western civilization. That's what they've done. And the question is, again, why? They're billionaires. They bought up all the best property. See, I think part of it, we could look at certain things. I guess the idea of ocean rise, that was to scare all the stupid upper middle class people who had oceanfront property out. And so Obama and people like that could come in and swoop up all these great, oceanfront properties, right? It's a possibility. It's the most likely thing. It's like Occam's razor. When you take everything else out, makes sense. Man just buys a house on the shore. So, or were they just trying to scare people away so they could get the land cheaper, save a couple million, get the prime spot on Martha's Vineyard or whatever? And what do they have these climate summits for when they know darn well that there's no such thing as that? People forget about Al Gore's original scare tactics. I saw something the other day. By 2010, the ocean levels were supposed to have risen ridiculously. 2010. So in other words, 11 years ago. Never happened. Just practically everything in his movie, like his fear-mongering movie, none of it came true. Right? And there's still people working from that thing. It's like the UN IPCC. Right? And the same with this summit, climate summit. Everything is just a bunch of, what are they doing? What's their purpose? They want to control and manipulate. Somehow they want everyone to be a serf. or something. You will own nothing and you will be happy. That ridiculous, thing. Like I say, I had the foresight, because the moment I saw that, I had the foresight, because I saw how absurd it was, to put it in my book. Where is that frickin' thing? There it is. Gotta find these things. Hey, how you doing? You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Actual promotional commercial from the World Economic Forum. The Great Reset. Happened already. They just, so it's this idea of they're drunk with power. And they're playing like little kids, like Bezos, rockets, and Elon Musk, rockets. It's like kids. When I was a kid, me and my cousin, and I think my brother too. Yeah, my brother too. Because we grew up in a coal region, and there used to be this place called the Silt Dam. And silt was when they washed, like rinsed the coal or whatever. It was, and there was this place, and I guess they used to do this years ago, but it had no longer was being used. So there was this place, it was just all this like fine, like, it was like coal, but it was like there was a lot of coal dust there. All right. We used to be able to, you could ski down the slope of it. I mean, this was like a mountain. This was on a mountain, a hill we used to climb. But in the middle of this silt dam was almost like a crater, because I guess that's where they used to do this, whatever they did. And it was like my parents, my mom mainly, my dad was working, would like freak out, because when you'd come back, you'd have like silt, which was basically black ash, in your socks and in your shoes and all over you. And she's like, don't bring that in the house, and it was, it was a mess. But we used to go there and launch these Estes, I guess they were Estes engines. We would build these model rockets, and we would go in the middle of this place because it was a big open flat area, and it was safe. You weren't going to get any fire or anything. And we used to shoot these rockets up. And I remember my cousin was into it too, and I used to go to his house. He used to live on the top of a mountain hill. His dad had some kind of business up there, so he owned the whole mountain. He was an interesting guy. He's gone. His father. But we used to go and we'd launch rockets, when we were kids. It's like model airplanes, model rockets. That kind of thing. It's kid stuff. These are grown men, grown billionaires, and that's what they're doing. They're playing with rockets. Like I said, you're not going to build a base on the moon or on Mars that's going to withstand a solar outburst. And you can't breathe on those planets. So you have to be in artificial shelters. What kind of life is that? You're a human being. And, guys like Musk, we're going to save humanity, or the spirit of humanity. You're not going to save humanity. Those people aren't going to be humans. They're going to be like weird people in spacesuits. We're going to be exposed to like radiation and, weird, a place that has, places that have like such no atmosphere or such small atmosphere that between radiation and, particle and just getting hit with like microscopic meteors or meteorites or whatever. I mean, it's not saving humanity, civilization. They're just boys with toys. What's it? I look at that like Obama. I'm just mentioning Obama, but there's Republicans, Democrats. It has nothing to do with politicians. That's just the most recent one that's been out there. it's like these rap stars and other people. It's like 22-room mansion on the beach. Well, so you get a bunch of billionaires over to party and they could sleep over. You get the such and such room. I mean, yeah, okay, great. Fine. Is that it? Okay, you got that. So why are you tormenting everybody? You know? What's your problem? You know, that's New England where you built that house. It gets really cold up there. You're going to need what you call fossil fuels to heat that 22-room mansion or however many frickin' rooms you have. Right? You think you're going to heat a house that big with solar? Not likely. I saw a picture of the darn thing. I didn't see like massive solar power on there. You know, I don't know what these people are thinking about. You know, if you're very rich, you know, there is this process. I know a lot about all of this stuff. Like I said, I've had to cite great solar stuff for 20-some years. And when I was in the advertising agency, I used to have a client that was involved in, they were doing some geothermal stuff. And what they do is when you get down a certain, so many feet down in the ground, it's not really that far down. It's a constant temperature. That's why like people build root cellars and stuff. But in basements. And so once you're underground so many feet, it's like a constant, like, I don't know, I don't quote me on this, and I'm not going to bother looking it up because this is just generally to give you an overview of it. But it's, I'm telling you what I know. It's like a constant 50 degrees or something weird like that. I guess it would depend on where you are. Okay. And there's things they call it, there's a thing called the frost line. So it depends on certain areas. The frost line is further down, and other areas it's closer to the surface. But the point is you go down X amount of feet wherever, depending on your locale, and the earth, it's a constant temperature. Because you got to remember that there is heat coming up from the magma all over the place. The more, that's what I'm trying to explain to you, that the more cosmic rays that enter the planet because we have a weakened magnetic field, the more this stuff comes up. And that's why we have things like La Palma, okay? Earth, these things. But anyway, I've talked to these people because I considered it, because I had at this building I no longer have. It's been since sold and whatever. This is years ago. But they were talking to me about doing geothermal, and that they had a couple installations that they had done for some people, some wealthy people. And what they do is they dig down. If you have a certain amount of space, they dig down into this area and they put in this, this series of like pipes. And what happens is, and it still requires it's like kind of a furnace system, but in other words, there's pumps that pump water down at this level, and it's like, it's in the summertime they're pumping, through this. You still have an HVAC system in effect, but it's a geothermal HVAC system. All right, and so they're taking that hot air or whatever, hot water, however it comes through this HVAC, furnace system. And they send down the hot air there, and it gets cooled. And that heat exchange, they have a thing called a heat exchanger or something like that. And that heat exchange then brings up cooler air. And in the wintertime, likewise, the colder air goes down there, and there's like through some heat exchange, that constant temperature down there is able to generate heat or cool air. That's like a geothermal type of, used domestically, in a house. It's only available to the wealthy. All right. And it's not something that can be, implemented to like on a city, to heat a city. All right. Unless you're in some place like Reykjavik and you're talking geothermal in terms of volcanic, some kind of, or harnessing like Yellowstone hot springs or something like that, which would be which is all ways of heating. That's true geothermal activity. So, in case you're ever because there's always somebody out there that's going to try to poke a hole through what I'm telling you. And so I'm telling you, no, I don't say things off the cuff. I know. And I talk to guys who are basically telling me how they could do it in our back parking lot, how they would have to dig that out, and what it entailed and what it cost. And it was expensive. All right. So the average person, doesn't have the space to do it, or the accessibility of bringing in heavy equipment, which again would require excavators or skid steers and dump trucks, which all run on carbon-based fuels. You see, this is the thing that is just kept out of the equation. You cannot fix the infrastructure without using carbon-based fuels or fossil fuels, whatever you want to call them, because the heavy equipment to make a girder and then to raise it with a crane, to dig the holes with an excavator, to put pylons, you're right, to scrape highways so you can reuse or cover them. If you're using asphalt, that's basically like I said before, tar, the closest thing to like crude oil. And then not to mention plastics, the use of plastics. And whether you want to say recycling or not, there's still always a need for more plastics. And plastics come from carbon-based fuels, fossil fuels. It's a byproduct of refining. So all of these so-called renewable things save, a dam that's producing, energy through turbines, which are so few and far between. California, I think, just took off a nuclear plant offline. And didn't like 3 Mile Island finally go offline? I'm not sure about that or not, so don't quote me on that one. But it's like, we're not like France, which gets most of its electricity from nuclear. And we're certainly not like Germany and stuff, who's tried to be green, but basically still has inked a deal with Moscow to get, have the pipeline, get fuel, fossil fuel to heat Germany from Russia. See what I mean? So what's going on? Why are they lying or not half truths about these things? Sometimes it's half truths. They'll say, yeah, renewable energy is growing, or solar and wind is fastest growing. Yeah, but it's like 4.3% of electricity in the U.S. And the amount of space that these things take up, right? Like I say, most people's yards, you couldn't switch to have that geothermal type of thing, right? And if you did, it would be, you're talking major buku bucks. And solar farms, out in the desert, it's easy to build solar farms. But you're not going to build a solar farm. You build a solar farm in the middle of Central Park? I mean, I wouldn't put it past these people. but it's not going to heat New York City in the wintertime. So, I don't know what the game is, but it's crazy is what it is. And they support themselves with half-truths, or sometimes they come out like this Psaki, whatever the heck it is, and says high gas prices are good. I mean, there's only one thing I could say, and I haven't really used this kind of language in this show, but are you out of your fucking mind, Psaki? Are you out of your fucking mind? High gas prices are good? It's the poor and the working class person and the lower middle class, if there is such a thing anymore, that are affected the most by the working people, the people, who still have jobs, that are affected the most by energy prices. And unless you're planning to pay for the fuel of these people that you're giving the $300 for them to pop out a kid, all the ones that live in the northern regions. But then again, like I say, look what happened to Texas last year. These polar vortexes happen all the time. By the way, they've been happening since the beginning of time. And how do we know that? Through the archaeological record, right? It's nothing new. It's not climate change, right? The Earth's climate is fluctuating. We're in an interglacial period, man. I told you the natural order of this planet has been ice ages, right? Except from the very beginning when it was a molted ball, right? As far as we know. Of course, we don't know anything. We only know what we know directly or firsthand. Everything else we have to take on, faith, right? You could believe your grandparents if they experience something and tell you that, and you go, well, it's high confidence. I believe my grandparents. Why would she lie to me or he lie to me? All right? Some people may have a great-grandparent still around. Why would they lie? They won't lie to you. But beyond that, you don't know anything. It's basically some sort of writing in a history book, right? History, those who write history control the past, right? And those who control the past control the future. Forget who said something along those lines. So you don't know anything. You only know what you know, right? Firsthand. Oh, so you watch a newscast. That's not firsthand. Something goes viral. That may have passed through 1,000 different people, right? Something. You don't know that. You have no idea, right? You have no idea. You don't know that person. You don't know that newscaster, right? They're reading from a, teleprompter. Some editor, somebody put that together, decided to producer, they put the show together, decided this is the theme of the show, this is the structure of it. We'll put this story first, we'll follow with this, go to a break, then we'll do that, then we'll bring that. It's juxtaposition. Then we'll put this besides that, and then that will have an impact. Or that'll lessen the impact and keep the narrative that we want as a company to come out. So that it's like in that news story here that the CBS Evening News says overdose deaths hit record high during pandemic. So they're juxtaposing deaths with pandemic. You see? They're playing with your head. That's CBS News. Whereas up top, the Wall Street Journal says drug overdose deaths fueled by fentanyl specifically hit record high in the U.S. But if you read the Wall Street Journal, you go, man, this fentanyl problem is serious. And how's that shit coming in here? And what are these government people doing they're allowing that to hit a record high when apparently Last year, under the last administration, they had dipped a little bit, like by about 10%. It wasn't much, but it had gone down. So you read that Wall Street Journal article, you're thinking, hey man, something's going on. These guys are ignoring this. Well, how could we have all this fentanyl shit? But if you watch the CBS Evening News 10 hours ago, or probably 11 hours ago now, you see overdose deaths hit record high during pandemic. All you see is what they want you to see is deaths, pandemic. Right? It's juxtaposition. All right? They want to keep the narrative. And then they probably followed that with some kind of story based on, what they call the jab or whatever. I think I have a tumor in my sinuses behind my right eye. I think it might be growing, which sucks. CT scan showed it. I just hope it. I don't know how they would get something like that out. Osteoid osteoma to the right mastoid. There's a 5 millimeter osteoid osteoma within the right mastoid air cells. Axial image 4. There's remaining paranasal sinuses and mastoid L cells. Life stinks. But, I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. Life goes on. Long live the king is dead. So, anyway, if you have any bit of common sense, any kind of logical mind, if you're able to read a sentence or watch something and see it for what it is, if you could understand subtext, if you know what juxtaposition is, you can see that the Great Reset is already happened. It happened last year. There's no changing it, right? And they already implemented the Great Reset last year, a year ago. We're living in it. It's a paradigm shift, okay? So you have to do what you can do. But you're like, well, life isn't bad. I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. Things are cool. Yeah. So freedom is fun. Enjoy your freedom while you have it. I don't know what are they going to do next? They just don't, they seem relentless, don't they? See, despite all of these things, this statement alone down here, hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated in U.S., Fauci says, NBC News. NBC News, man, they're the most, they're the biggest, they've been caught in so many lies that it's ridiculous. Hospitalization rising among fully vaccinated in U.S., Fauci says, NBC News. I mean, the idea that an organization like that would even have a headline, and this is coming from Google News, all right? Not me, or not one of those weird, they've got all these oddball pop-up new news things on the internet. No, this is just Google News is reporting what NBC reported, just like the CBS thing I showed you. This is what they call the mainstream media. So what are they doing? Right? So how could you have a story like that and then continue and then follow through with some kind of crazy lockdown restrictions,
Your papers, please.
And all that kind of crazy stuff, right? It's like weird. It's really weird. It's like, when's enough enough? I mean, these people, they're just tormenting us. Do you understand? They're tormenting the general public. They're messing with, they're just ruining the lives and the quality of life of everybody on the frickin' planet. You know? I saw something the other day, there was an application to the FDA by one of the major pharmaceuticals, big pharmas, for some antiviral pill, right? And I think there's a couple of those things out there right now. Antiviral, because we're dealing with that's what we're dealing with. And, why isn't that thing being dealt with? And it's the same with that kitchen sink thing, if you understand what I'm talking about. Like all these high profile people, whenever they get something. Do you notice Jen Psaki was back at the microphone in less than 14 days? She wasn't right? So she got it. How come all these high profile people, politicians, corporatocracy types, even, Tim Pool, and Joe Rogan, like the internet millionaires, right? Why do they get it? And they're back in action, within the week, sometimes 48 hours, 3 or 4 days, but definitely, less than a week. And they're on their show. I'm better. I took the kitchen sink thing, right? Psaki, she's out for a few days. And now she's back saying things like, high gas prices are good. But what about you? And what about all these people that work at companies? Or what about these people losing their jobs because they don't want to take this thing, even though NBC News is saying hospitalizations are rising among the fully vaccinated? Like, whoa, wait a second. You're firing people, not letting them go to work? And then NBC's reporting that it doesn't even frickin' matter? Oh, it helps it, because that was their thing. They were saying before, they said, well, if you take it, you're less likely to be hospitalized, right? Hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated in the U.S., Fauci says, NBC News. So what kind of excuse are they going to do? Or how are they going to recant that? Oh, that study was, I didn't really mean that Fauci will be on the news shows this Sunday. Well, I didn't really mean it that way. But you said it. You said it was a year ago, you said 14 days to flatten the curve. Then you said we need another 30 days or something like that to be sure. Right? Then you said you didn't donate money to the Wuhan lab. But then we found out you did. Right? Right. And then recently we've learned that you all knew about this thing in the summer of 2019. And it's almost 2022 right now. Now, this is all public knowledge. This is the news. This is the major media, right? The mainstream media. This is found on Google. You could find that Sky News interview with the former director of national security and the former head of the CIA from Sky News. You could find that on YouTube. All right. This was NBC. So you don't take, all these things that keep coming out. It's no secret that, Obama's got a beach house. He just spent it like mega millions on. It's no secret that there were 400 jets, private jets, driven by these billionaires to a climate summit that wants to get rid of the fuel that they use to get in their jets there. Like they're going to give up their private jets. It's no mystery that that wind and solar, according in 2019, it's maybe they're up to 5% of electricity in the U.S. and high gas prices are good? If you double it, it's 10%. If you triple it, all right, it's 15%. If you quadruple it, it's 20%. And in some states, coal is 25%, not like 12%, like it is in some states. It's 12%. I mean, it averages out over the entire country. It's somewhere, it's like half that. But in like the really cold states and stuff like that, it's like 25%. And that's where the high population centers are. Do you understand? New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, right? Detroit, Pittsburgh. I mean, you go across the whole Washington, D.C. These are all states that are all cities that deal with, and cities within states, that deal with like cold winters. All right? And, so something that's generating, wind and solar that's generating 5% of the electricity in the country. Do you know electricity for electric heat is like, that's a lot. And the North isn't like solar friendly. It's like I always used to say this years ago. I mean, years and years ago, like 30 years ago. In the wintertime, once you hit a certain point, it's like today, it's like the North is like 256 shades of gray. It's like a graphic artist thing, an old computer thing. You know what I mean? You go through stretches from like December to March where you barely see the sun. It's like, and because it's just a constant cloud cover and cold, it's like everything's like it's just like a gray world we live in. Colorless, because there's not enough light to, brighten the colors of things. It's like 256 shades of gray. Why don't they ever talk about that? Like they're ignoring it, like as if it doesn't matter, because they live in places and worlds that they don't know what I told you before, they don't know what an excavator is. They don't know what a large dump truck is. They don't know what a skid steer is. They don't know what, a steamroller, they don't know how infrastructure is repaired, what cranes are. They may have seen them, but they don't know. They don't understand that the weight of a fire truck and a hook and ladder, the ladder to go up to put out a fire on a 16th floor, and how much fuel is necessary. Even like big EMT ambulances and stuff like that. Their tonnage. All right? They don't get it. And their idea is, well, we're going to put more electric charging stations around so that, we could even have tractor trailers like Tesla has it, an 18-wheeler type of thing that he wants to use. But the amount of electricity, because depending, if they're carrying a container, these container that come on these container ships, like these things are heavy. The thing itself that actually holds the stuff that's inside that's being transported itself is tonnage, okay? Which means, yeah, they've got to build along these major interstates all kinds of charging stations. But if they're going to take the Interstate 80 northern route across, because that's where all these high population centers are that are going to need these goods that come in on the coast, right? The West Coast. Well, they're going to be stopping it and fueling up at almost every rest stop assuming that they put an electric charging station there. And when you're going through all those northern states, the electricity produced isn't coming from solar. And if, and maybe you might get a couple of percent coming from wind, because they do have these wind things all over the place. So I even find it quite surprising that was only 4.3% of electricity produced by solar and wind, because there is so many of those damn ugly windmills all over the place. They've just ruined the landscapes, right? And if they're going to double them or triple them, I mean, come on. But still, even with that, you're still going to be relying on coal, natural gas, and, and I guess oil. So what's the difference? You see? What's the difference? It's a carbon-based civilization, right? Why not continue down the route that we've been on since the 60s, where we've been like improving fuel emissions and the process? We used to have leaded gas. When I was younger, you could go and get leaded gas. Well, they completely got rid of it because, the emissions were toxic. It was bad for the atmosphere. We used to call it pollution. Now they call it like climate change and greenhouse gases and stuff. We used to have stuff called smog and pollution, and it was like, and litter on the highways. And America, like in the 60s and 70s, had like these big campaigns, clean up America, let's get rid of the smog, end pollution, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, even the landfills now have, are cleaner than they were before, though we do generate a lot of garbage in this country and around the world. But they have processes that are, less, to put less leaching into the soil that could ultimately get into waterways or aquifers or whatever it is. And so the idea is that, you would think that there would be that sort of logic. So do these people just have a lot of stock? Is it like Fauci and Bill Gates who own a lot of stock in the pharmaceutical companies? It's funny, a lot of people looked at Rand Paul and they see him lambasting Fauci, but he could have really destroyed Fauci in the Senate hearings, the last Senate hearing. All he had to do is say, how much stock do you own in pharmaceutical companies that are involved in these, things? But see, the reason Rand Paul wouldn't say that, that's why I say I'm not political. This goes both sides of the so-called aisle. Because when they did that thing where they uncovered that there was all this insider trading going on in Congress, right, between the senators and Congress people, Nancy Pelosi was what? Her and her husband made about $5 million, right? But I think Rand Paul made about $8 million. And you bet he's got some pharmaceutical stocks. If he doesn't, he's a fool that he didn't, because he could have crushed Fauci on that. It's public knowledge he has interest in it, unless he sold it off. Doubt it. Of course he could have. He's an old man. I mean, might as well cash out like Bezos did, right? Bezos is living in basically like a survivalist bunker where he's got this route to a rocket to escape. It's really weird. And then he has a yacht that he could take the rocket to or something like that and go in the ocean when this cataclysm that I talk about occurs. You never saw that or heard that before, did you? Yeah, it's really weird. It's like out in the Southwest somewhere. He's got this like protected bunker type of place, and then there's this road that he could take this vehicle to a rocket if he needs to get off the planet. Or he has this like unbelievable like ark type of yacht that he thinks that if the oceans do this thing, he could like get on that and ride that wave. The only problem is if this cataclysm that we've talked about comes true, that wave will be so high, you're not going to be able to jump that wave on a ship. Anyway, I've said a lot today. And I've said a lot in the last, say, couple of shows. I've said a lot in the last 350, 400, whatever, 500 shows I've done. And there's a lot said in my books, right? And I'm sorry you can't get a bear, Cute. But anyway, I'm going to end it there. And I wish you all the best of luck, you know.
Good morning.
Appreciate if you go to TonyCaravanLive.com or RockFlux.com or Amazon and get my book in print. Buy a shirt. Get one of those power packs. You might need it this winter. You probably will need it this winter. You don't have to get the solar panel. Like I say, I'm not anti-solar. Solar's fine on an individual level, all right? But it's just it's such a small percentage. It's not going to save the U.S. of A. These people are playing some kind of game. I don't know what it is. We'll figure it out.
Elvis has left the building. Thank you and